I will eliminate capital gains taxes for small businesses and startups so that we can grow our economy and create the high-wage, high-tech jobs of tomorrow. I will cut taxes. Listen here, because you guys are being fed these ads that don't tell the truth. I will cut taxes for 95% of all working families. If you make less than $250,000 a year, let me show of hands. How many people make less than $250,000 a year? All right. Well, I'm talking to you then. You will not see your taxes increase one single dime in an Obama administration. 95% of you will see your taxes go down.
All right. You have, however, said you would favor an increase in the capital gains tax. As a matter of fact, you said on CNBC, and I quote, "I certainly would not go above what existed under Bill Clinton, which was 28%. It's now 15%. That's almost a doubling if you went to 28%. But actually, Bill Clinton in 1997 signed legislation that dropped the capital gains tax to 20%. Right. And George Bush has taken it down to 15%. And in each instance, when the rate dropped, revenues from the tax increased. The government took in more money. And in the 1980s, when the tax was increased to 28%, the revenues went down. So why raise it at all, especially given the fact that 100 million people in this country own stock and would be affected?
Well, Charlie, what I've said is that I would look at raising the capital gains tax for purposes of fairness.
In terms of capital gains, I've suggested we might go back up to 20. We might, because
you suggested 28.
Well, what I've said is I certainly would not raise it higher than it was under Ronald Reagan.
I certainly would not go above what existed under Bill Clinton, which was the 28%. And my guess would be it would be significantly lower than that.
They also say you raise revenue by $600 billion over the next 10 years. He cuts revenue by $600 billion over the next 10 years. If we're either in a recession or approaching one, is it wise to raise revenues in any way?
Well, I think that it is wise if you've got a $500 billion deficit. I think it makes sense for us to make sure that we're paying for what we're purchasing. If we're continuing to spend $10 billion a month in Iraq, we can't keep on borrowing that on a credit card from the Chinese. So, you know, John McCain likes to talk about fiscal responsibility, but there is no doubt that his proposals blow a hole through the budget. And, you know, what I've said is, realistically, we're not going to be able to eliminate that budget deficit. But what we can do is stabilize it, stop digging a hole, give a tax break to middle-class families, give them some relief, and that will start growing the economy again.
So even if we're in a recession next January, you come into office, you'll still go through with your tax increases?
No. What I've said, George, is that even if we're still in a recession, I'm going to go through with my tax cuts. That's my priority.
But not the increases?
I think we've got to take a look and see where the economy is. I mean, the economy is weak right now. The news with Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae, I think, along with the unemployment numbers, indicates that we're fragile. I want to accelerate those tax cuts through a second stimulus package, get more money into the pockets of ordinary Americans, see if we can stabilize the housing market, and then we're going to have to reevaluate at the beginning of the year to see what kind of hole we're in.
The budget director is also trying to sidestep criticism over an environmental policy which he and the president admit will result in higher energy costs for consumers. Chief Washington correspondent Jim Engel looks at cap and trade.
Almost every activity in the U.S. economy emits carbon dioxide, but President Obama wants to impose a cap on total emissions throughout the economy and charge industry a new tax of at least $65 billion a year for their current activities.
There's an overall limit on pollution that's set for the economy. Then each company has to purchase an allowance that allows them to emit some pollution.
The emission permits would be sold at auction, putting a price on emissions in hopes of creating a financial incentive to find alternatives.
Companies that can reduce their emissions more have to buy fewer allowances.
But even candidate Obama conceded during the campaign that plan would hit consumers hard.
Under my plan of a cap-and-trade system, electricity rates would necessarily skyrocket.
Skyrocket, he explained, because utilities, especially coal, would have to pay an enormous price up front while they search for ways to reduce emissions.
They would have to retrofit their operations. That will cost money. They will pass that money on to consumers.
Several analysts confirm the president's prediction and say the increases in utility costs will be steep.
In dollar cost terms, probably an additional $700 to $1,400 per family per year.